Hello, Philos Catholic, and welcome back to another episode of Beyond Rome. We are missing Simone Riscola, my co-host today, but we are making up for that with a lovely guest. I am joined by Cecily Routman of the Jewish Pro-Life Foundation. I had the chance to meet Cecily earlier this summer, and we had a great conversation in person, and I found her story very inspiring and beautiful. But thank you for joining today, Cecily.
Thank you. I'm pleased to be here. It's an honor.
Lovely. Well, I thought for everyone, before we jump into the Jewish Pro-Life Foundation as an organization, I would love to get a recap of your own personal story and how you even came to get into the pro-life space, and just even your own personal journey before getting involved occupationally in this area.
Thank you, James. Well, I'm 65 years old now, so it's been quite a journey, and I'm very grateful to be where I'm at today with a God consciousness that informs my thoughts, words, and deeds. It took me a long time to get there.
Yeah.
I was raised in a Jewish family, mom, dad, 3 girls. My parents were first-generation Americans. My dad's family was from Ukraine. My mom's from Romania, so they were these Jewish people that fled persecution in Europe, and they came and they created an American dream: business, family, home, property, all that stuff.
Right.
And my dad was fairly religious. My mother was more agnostic. So I grew up in a very dynamic, busy household without much of a social conscience. We were busy working, studying, achieving, things like that. I always had a tendency to connect spiritually, and I was always a spiritual seeker. In my early teens and to my late 20s, I was suffering from some physical ailments, which kept me out of the dating scene and which drove me deeper into my spiritual work at a younger age than I think a lot of people do. Yeah. Like many Jewish kids, I was taught that abortion is legal in Judaism. At least until the baby is being born. And I did not question that, but it wasn't really an issue for me because I wasn't dating. And I just when I went off to college, I watched the girls go from the University Health Center to the Planned Parenthood clinic, and I made no judgments about it. And later on in my life, I was blessed to need a 12-step recovery program for an eating disorder that I had. So I ended up in these 12-step recovery rooms for a long time. And over that period of time, I was again blessed by being around very kind people, all on their spiritual journey. And I read a sentence many times over, but eventually it resonated with me in the textbook of sobriety that these groups use. And it said in there that if we know nothing at all, we know that we are all children of a heavenly Father, and we all have a right to be here. And that really helped heal me because I didn't think I had a right to be anywhere, which is, of course, my distorted thinking and negative thinking. But my healing journey really began then, and I really embraced that. And I suppose you could say that that's when I was given this personal relationship with HaShem, my creator, the God. And I've been, going along ever since pretty well. And I was curious about the pro-life movement and heard in 2005 a National Public Radio broadcast on a show there they were doing about the ban on partial birth abortion. And I heard a Jewish woman on that show declaring in a very strident voice that she had a religious right to have this partial birth abortion, which I didn't agree with. I hadn't been taught that. And I wanted to start looking into it. So I did start trying to learn more about abortion. I was appalled when that woman was talking on national radio like that. I thought, oh my goodness, everybody's going to think Jewish people are into this infanticide, and it's not going to be good for us. We already have a lot of people that don't like us. Right? So anyway, the more I learned about abortion, the more appalled and horrified I was. And I started talking to God, and he started talking to me. And the story of the beginning of my pro-life journey starts when I was joined a local pro-life group, and one of the gentlemen who attended that group worked for the Pennsylvania Pro-Life Federation. He was very nice. And I approached him and I said, what's going on in the Jewish community about this being pro-abortion is really troubling to me. And I think I might want to start some work in there. And he looked at me and said, oh, this is an answer to prayer. We've been praying for a Jewish person for years to step up into the pro-life community. So I felt set up and bemused. And, that was just another proof positive that I am not in charge of my life. Right? God is in charge of our lives. So I had quite a conversation with God for a year about that. And then I looked up and I said, okay. And so we incorporated in 2006 and we got our first nonprofit status in 2007. And I've been creating content and refining our message and understanding on a deeper level what it is to be Jewish, what it means to be pro-life. And recently, I've been welcomed into the pro-life leadership community. And so I'm learning a lot more all the time now. So it's a very busy, growth-oriented time for us here at the Jewish Pro-Life Foundation.
Yeah. And what are some of the programs you currently have because you guys do education within the Jewish community about, abortion and the dangers of it, and then just giving pro-life resources, I would imagine. But do you have specific programs as well within the Jewish Pro-Life Foundation?
Yes. Well, our main activities are to offer Torah-based pro-life education to Jewish communities. And we have a healing program called Tikvat Rachel. There are a lot of Jewish women and men who suffer after abortion. Yeah. And they're very confused because they're told they have done nothing wrong. And yet they are extremely unbalanced and confused and bewildered about why they don't feel happy. So we offer that. It's very, very successful and good to have that program. And then we have an Israel pro-life education project that we started earlier this spring. I've been wanting to bring our work to Israel, where abortion is normative and legal through all 9 months of pregnancy. And so we have now a Hebrew website and a digital marketing campaign going on as we speak, reaching out to Jewish people in Israel who have never had access to Torah-based or any other kind of pro-life education.
Yeah, just as a quick question, I'm actually not familiar with Torah-based. What does that term mean?
Oh, Torah-based, which is just the Old Testament, sort of, the 5 books of Moses. That's
Torah.
Yes,
my bad.
Torah.
I thought I heard tar-based, and I was like, what am I missing?
So that's what it is. Yes, we use the 5 books of Moses. The pro-life movement really started in the Old Testament.
Yeah. That's a huge part of it.
Yes, I heard somebody say at March for Life in Trenton, New Jersey this past, it's just a few weeks ago, I attended there, and a nice Catholic man came up and said, the first pro-life movement was in Egypt when the Pharaoh ordered those midwives to kill those baby boys, and they said no. So, we go way back. And then we also access the prophets, what's called the Tanakh, which is the 5 books of Moses, and then the prophets and all the other works of the Bible up until the New Testament starts.
Yeah. Could you, for listeners, explain then, because Catholics and Christians in general, we have a big pro-life movement, and a lot of us understand from a religious aspect why we would be pro-life. But I think a lot of those reasons are also the same reasons that the Jewish people would have as well. So I guess, could you speak to maybe where that cognitive dissonance comes in, where, we would have the same roots in an understanding of, the dignity of each human life from conception to natural death. How is a Jewish person, I guess the question is, why are you pro-life through Judaism? Where do you derive that? Because I would imagine it's, Genesis, but what would be some other sources within the Old Testament that you are able to pull and show that being pro-life is, a Hebraic, it's an Old Testament, it's based on Old Testament principles and belief?
There's so many, James.
Yeah.
There's so many. So it starts with Adam and Eve when God told them to be fruitful and multiply. And
Right.
that is repeated over and over and over again
Yeah.
in Torah. And then in Genesis 9:6, I always quote this because it is really the foundational verse for the pro-life movement, I think. And it says, "Whoever spills the blood of man within man, so shall his blood be spilled. And you be
Mm.
fruitful and multiply and fill the earth." And the rabbis of old, before the Jewish law became what I call corrupted
Mm-hmm.
by lots of distorted opinions on the Torah verses.
Yeah.
But back in the day, the rabbis were very clear that that within man meant the baby in the womb. And
Yeah.
because HaShem, God, abhorred child sacrifice,
Yeah.
he was really against anybody, Jews in particular, but everybody, avoiding pagan secular lifestyles, right? Because
Yeah.
because babies are created in his image, and so destroying
Right.
that image is abhorrent to him. So it comes pretty early in the Bible, and then we have, of course, the verses choose life that you and your children may live. And in Leviticus, we have clear prohibitions against child sacrifice. And then
Right.
we have our prophets that talk so eloquently about the baby in the womb,
Mm.
Jeremiah,
Right.
Isaiah. So it's a beautiful tradition. Unfortunately, many Jews are secular, and
Yeah.
because of the Holocaust, we lost huge numbers of very religious, righteous leaders of the Jewish
Mm.
community, and that vacuum was filled by people that gave up religion after that horrible experience.
Right.
And they've changed the what is perceived as our traditions. And we do
Right.
have very religious Jews still that do
Of
not
course.
speak up on the issue, but they are almost 100% pro-family, pro-life. Although there are pockets of those communities with leaders who believe that taking the life of an unborn child is justified in certain situations like rape and incest and the life of the
Right.
mother. And we're working hard to educate them about the human dignity of every baby, no matter how it's conceived.
Yeah.
And if it's not particularly the healthiest baby, and that abortion is always dangerous and always has worse outcomes than giving birth.
Yeah.
And so, yes, we're educating those as well as the more secular Jews that have been taught that abortion is a religious right.
Yeah. And maybe you wouldn't get the religious right aspect within a lot of other frameworks or religious frameworks like Christianity, but a lot of the issues that, or a lot of the, defenses of abortion are human ones that I think a lot of different communities, because even in, a secularized Christian America, you have a lot of the same defense of abortion that you'd have with secular Judaism or the secular side of Israel as well. And of course, I think both communities and both places have we're suffering the effects of certain Enlightenment thinking with this sort of radical autonomy as well, and this kind of breakdown of the family and community as well. Within the pro-life space, since there are only so many Jewish pro-life foundations or organizations, would you say you have any particular challenges that you as an organization face that maybe other groups, pro-life groups, wouldn't face?
Yes. I guess the first one is we're dealing with a population, our target population is extremely intelligent and well educated. And I have
Mm-hmm.
found that the smarter and more educated a person is, the more inaccessible they are to spiritual messaging.
Mm.
Because their mind is so powerful that blocks a
Right.
spiritual consciousness, right? So that's
Right.
one problem. And we are taught in the Jewish community from very early on to avoid Christians and Catholics because they're going to try to convert us.
Right.
And so because of that, we avoid any content or exposure to any kind of, online resources or whatever. So Jews do not access pro-life content because it's generally on Christian or Catholic platforms.
Yeah.
So this is why it's so important there's a Jewish platform that they may or may not access. Of course, if they know about us, because another challenge is that Google or Facebook and all, it's very difficult for me to get an ad or any kind of exposure there. Although we've been
Right.
going at it now for quite a few years, so we do have a lot of followers on every platform I can put us on. But that's another problem. And the funding issue, I'd say 95% of all the money that
Yeah.
goes into this issue goes the other way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
but you know, I'm when I started this, I gave this all to God, and I said, okay, it looks impossible. I don't even know how to open a computer or anything, but we'll just get started and see where you take it. So,
Yeah.
um,
And here we are. And it's been, I mean, it is great work that needs to be done. And if you can be, I think I might have said this in our conversation before, but being that voice in the wilderness, and you aren't the only voice too, you know, it's not something that's spoken about as much because I would imagine Jews a lot of time they have other things that they're worried about in terms of like survival and combating anti-Semitism. I mean, again, that doesn't justify abortion in any way, but um, especially in the West, Christians, like it's thank God that we have such a strong community that's able to combat that. But if you're also in Nigeria, like you're a Christian in Nigeria, you're trying to survive, and you don't have the like. It's not a privilege; it's something you should be fighting for. But there's only so much time that you can put into these sort of things as well. So it's not to justify, but I think it's again that sense of trying to begin to understand the situation within a different community. You have to get into that sympathizing framework in a way that doesn't justify certain moral things or certain moral qualms you might have an issue with. But I
yes,
think that's the first step that you have to take.
yes, you're right. Many Jews are very afraid to speak out on this issue, even if they are pro-life, because they don't want to get attacked. They don't want
Mm-hmm.
the government, which now we have an administration that's very positive about aborting children. So the last thing they want to
Yeah.
do is incur the wrath of a federal government.
Right.
And you know, I read an article recently that in the past year, attacks against Jews have gone up like thousands,
Mm-hmm.
10,000% or something. So people are on a defensive now. But I have a spiritual axiom that I've been sharing a lot. This insight came to me that peace begins in the womb,
Yeah.
and that these wars that are escalating all around the world, especially in the Middle East, are because we're at war with our children in the womb, and
Mm.
that is reflected out into the physical world that we live in. You know, we
Yeah.
make our own reality. That's very true. God allows us to do this so that we eventually are in so much pain and suffering that we get down on our knees and we reach out and call
Right.
him for help, right? And we repent, and then we have peace and his
Mm-hmm.
protection again. It's very clear in the Old Testament if you read the Torah.
Right.
And we have a covenant with God. And I believe this applies to all people. You know, I'm a very
Mm-hmm.
inclusive person.
Right.
So, I mean, it's very clear about the blessings and the curses. If you just
Right.
believe in me, worship me, and live by my laws, I will protect you and care for you, and you'll prosper and be happy. But if you
Right.
don't, it's not going to go well for you. And there's lists of curses. They really actually mirror what's going on in the world today.
Mm.
So while
Right.
people are trying to fight off invasions and all these terrible domestic and international problems that we have now, they're working at it militarily, politically, diplomatically, whatever. They're
Right.
continuing to destroy their own children.
Right.
And so I think they have it backwards. I think if we stop killing our children, God will be so happy
Right.
that he will just protect all of us and give us the peace and this messianic age that people are looking for and craving.
Mm-hmm.
And I have very good relations with my Christian and Catholic brothers and sisters. I just say, whether the Messiah comes for the first or second time, we are all craving the same spiritual nourishment and consolation and peace. It's in the human condition. It's the way we're made.
Yeah.
So I
And
think, yeah.
for Jews too, it's not that Judaism is bad. Like again, it's that return. You're talking about this return to God, and you see that in the Old Testament. So they have the resources for that too. But their story is the story. I mean, through Christ, that story is given to all the world, and of course, there's more depth to it. But through Christ, the message of the Jewish people is opened up, and the promises are given to them, and it's that same promise. It's that, like you're saying, repent, returning to God in a way that we give up control, we surrender something. And I think within the abortion industry, it's this, whatever justifying rationale you have for it, it comes down to trying to control your own life in a way that tries to get God out of the picture. Your axiom, your spiritual axiom, though, reminded me of, are you familiar with Mother Teresa? I mean, I feel like you can't escape her in the pro-life movement, and that's a good thing. Is she someone, or even someone like Pope John Paul the Great, are he and Mother Teresa, are they someone who would be well known among the Jewish community?
I doubt it.
Okay.
I do doubt it. And that's a shame because your traditions have a lot of wonderful, inspiring people. But as I said, we are taught to avoid this kind of content. And so, I mean, it's very interesting. I will say another problem that comes up is that in this woke culture now, because secular Jews believe that abortion is a religious right, that if somebody's pro-life, they consider them to be anti-Semitic. So part of my work now is to build bridges between the Christian and Jewish communities and reassure them that, no, we do not believe that. Okay,
right.
We don't believe you're
anti-Semitic. Anti-Semitic? What? Yeah.
Because you want to save children in the womb. The other thing that people don't understand is that these babies are tortured to death without pain medicine. Okay, and they feel pain at a very early age. When I learned about the medical science part of this, that the nerves are formed very early, but they don't have any nerve protections. We can't even imagine how painful that is, right? And yet this happens thousands of times a day around the globe. 73 million babies perish like this a year, according to the World Health Organization. So it's important to keep talking about it. Just like in the concentration camps in World War II, when people were being slaughtered behind walls. So it's the same thing. This deed is being done behind the walls of an abortion center. And right in our communities, though, they're not even out, in 100 miles away, right? And people know what's happening. But as you said, people are very busy. And I will just say this before I close. I love, my Jewish brothers and sisters. And I try to emulate the good Lord because he loves all of us, right? And all he wants to do is forgive us and bring us to a place where he can be merciful and forgiving and help us prosper. So I always try to keep a very positive attitude and a life-affirming view of everybody. One of the things that's happened in our religion, though, is very similar to what's happened in other legal systems. So we started out with a Torah that was a perfect legal system. And it was transmitted orally until about the 1st and 2nd century, when the temple was destroyed and we were in exile again. Right. The Romans sacked the Jewish temple. And so the rabbis thought, because people are dispersing all over the place, we better write this law down. And once it started being written down, opinions just, were all over the place about everything. So, for example, if a lot of Jewish women were having miscarriages and felt terrible, the rabbis would write an opinion. Oh, it's not really a baby until 40 days. That gets put in the lexicon. And then, years later, somebody says, oh, look, some rabbi said it's not a baby until it's 40 days old. And then people say, well, you can have an abortion before 40 days. So this is what's happened to our law. And it's very similar to what's happened to the United States legal code. I mean, how did we end up with the right to kill an unborn baby from a constitution that said you have a right to life, right? So this happened because of all this case law and all these opinions. And this is what happens if people are not connected first to God, right? If they use their own intellect, they can make anything into something they want it to be. And when people give me these justifications for doing this, I say, well, just substitute the word unborn baby for toddler. Or
Right.
for my friends that really love animals, I say, well, just substitute the word baby for puppy.
Right.
And then their compassion heart gets into gear, and they just are appalled at the very thought of doing that to a puppy or a 2-year-old or whatever.
Right.
And I think that's some kind of a strategy to kind of get through that intellectual wall that they have built up in order to support a self-centered approach to life, which it comes naturally to people. It's just the way we are. So we need a lot of modeling and a lot of support if we're going to let that go. Because if you give up your self-definition for something that you can't see, that's really scary. I consider it to be like a really interesting process, and I'm curious about it, But most people get so freaked out, they can't do it.
Yeah. It is funny, though, that you say, like, that rational process where it's the secular Jews who would then argue for a religious right to abortion when they've kind of stepped away from the religion that they are invoking as the basis of their right. But if you look at that religion, again, if you look at the Old Testament, if you look at the Torah, the basis doesn't exist there, which is so that's where, I mean, in your case too, it must be so heartbreaking to see that, frustrating at times as well. But you spoke also about having examples or having voices to speak out within the Jewish community, or at least you personally. Are there figures who you turn to within the Jewish community who are also outspoken against abortion? So you said it is, for the most part, there's not a lot of outspoken voices, but are there some in your life that you look to?
Yes, we are affiliated with some wonderful rabbis who are outspoken. I have a speakers list, and they're willing to go speak anywhere. So that's very supportive, and I learn a lot from them and draw inspiration and fortitude from them. And we're so grateful for them. The Jewish Pro-Life Foundation became kind of like a hub for any Jewish person that was pro-life and had nowhere else to go. So we're like the home. Right. And it's been interesting because we've attracted people that have converted to Judaism, despite the fact that, it can be hostile to the pro-life sentiment, but they are pro-life, and so they find us and feel like they have a Jewish home in their new conversion.
Yeah.
And then we have people that there's many, many Jewish people that have converted to Catholicism because of this issue.
Right.
Right. And so, I think there are people that I know now that have said, well, now I don't have to convert because I can be a pro-life Jewish person.
Yeah.
Which is a nice thing to offer.
Yeah. And I think that is good. And I said it earlier too, like, it doesn't have to be that, like, Judaism is wrong when it comes to this, because you ultimately, I think it's return to the, like, fulfilling your Jewish religious principles would be to become pro-life. Again, in your case too, you've kind of recognized that through this spiritual awakening, reckoning through your own suffering. But even within the rabbis or the outspoken, I was actually looking at your website earlier, and I'm going to butcher his name. I think it's Rabbi David Bleich. Is it Bleich?
Bleich.
Yeah. There is this quote that I read from him on your website, which I thought was beautiful. So I just want to share it here. And it goes, "A Jew is governed by such reverence for life that he trembles lest he tamper unmindfully with the greatest of all divine gifts, the bestowal or withholding of which is the prerogative of God alone. Although he be master over all within the world, there remain areas where man must fear to tread, acknowledging the limits of his sovereignty and the limitations of his understanding. In the unborn child lies the mystery and enigma of existence. Confronted by the miracle of life itself, man can only draw back in silence before the wonder of the Lord." I just thought that was a beautiful quote. Even just reading it then, it kind of sent shivers down my spine. But that's the kind of sentiment and the depth and the beauty that you can get from this Torah-based understanding of human life and the importance of it. So it is, I mean, there are wonderful people out there too, and I think it's beautiful to see that you creating the Jewish Pro-Life Foundation has brought them together in a way that they can be heard more, and creating a kind of a rallying flag for people who might be otherwise fearful of speaking out or doing something about it as well. So that is beautiful. Thank you for that. In closing, I want to speak to even just about the effects to not only in the unborn child, but even within motherhood as well. Because Judaism, of course, is a matriarchal, there's a strong emphasis on motherhood and matriarchy. Even Jewishness is actually passed on through the mother, correct?
Yes, originally it was a patriarchal lineage, but the rabbis instituted this matriarchal lineage. And also Judaism is a family-based religion. I think I was at an event yesterday, a beautiful luncheon, and a wonderful priest from Pittsburgh gave a wonderful talk. It was just wonderful. And he stressed this idea that, God made the family as the building block of communities and nations. Yeah. And the whole idea, and that's in the Old Testament. We're supposed to have the man and the woman, and then the babies, right? And there's holy matrimony. It's very important. And so in our work, I'm always emphasizing the role of the father and the mother and the family, because if we could do away with this breaking down of the family, like you mentioned earlier, if we could rebuild the family, a lot of this would stop, because women need support. Yeah. That's the way, the system is put together. So, and then children would be a lot safer. But, the way people are just too secularized now. But I predict, to land on a positive note, I do predict we will get back to our traditions. And they talk about a remnant in the Bible, of righteous people. And it will happen. And then the prophecies of the Bible will come true. And that's what really motivates me. The more I understand the Word of God in my own, personal, humble way, the more I realize that those promises can come true on a personal level, a family, community, and a national and global level if we just get back to those really good messages. So, and I really appreciate the time to talk with you today. I really think that your work is outstanding. And I'm so glad that my work is having us intersect and talk today. It's a real pleasure and an honor.
Yeah, it very much is. And I guess this episode won't be released in October, but for those listening, this is actually being recorded in October. And we thought it was appropriate because October is honored as Respect for Life Month. So we thought it would be fitting to have Cecily Routman come on and talk about the Jewish Pro-Life Foundation and her work. But Cecily, we will have links and resources in the episode details when we publish. So we will have stuff for people to learn more about your work. But thank you so much for joining us today. It was a pleasure speaking with you, praying for you and your work, and God bless.
Thank you. You too, James.
If this episode was helpful for you, please consider sharing it with a friend, leaving a rating and review to help us spread the word, and donating at philosproject.org/give with the comment Catholic to support this podcast. To learn more about becoming a Christian leader in the Near East, check out our Pathfinder free online courses, also on our website. Thanks for listening. See you next week.